Blueburst.
Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. We are joined today by Craig Douglas Miller, who has a project, Blueburst. Or do you go by the name, or is it a project?
It's a project. Yeah. There've been some articles where they refer to me as Blueburst, and I'm like, no, I'm still Craig. So
Right. There we go. That's what I was getting. It's sometimes
yeah,
it's tough because everything on the internet you can't believe. So,
yeah, exactly.
this project you work with Marty Wilson Piper, best known for the church, and I guess he was an All About Eve for a little bit. We spoke to him a few weeks back, and he
Oh,
mentioned you,
cool. Oh, cool.
and that's how I ended up pulling up your name and digging into it. And I must say, I really love what you did. It really it feels timeless, but also very familiar.
Well,
So
thank you. Yeah.
why don't we jump in? You at one way back were in a band called The Reach, some other bands, and I guess you decided to step back from music at some point.
Yeah. When the Reach broke up, I had grand designs of doing a solo album. And then I just, started working full time at an advertising job. And uh, I guess I lost my confidence a bit after the Reach. And I'm the kind of person that if I have an idea banging around in my head long enough, I'll decide that it's not any good. and so, I just kind of did that for 20 years. I had a demanding career, and I was still making little snippets of music, and a lot of those wound up on this new album. Um, I had like 20 years of snippets to go back and pull from, but I never finished any songs. That's always been difficult for me, and working with Marty really helped me to push through that and give me some confidence to finish things.
Right now, this was during COVID when you two got together, right?
I suppose so. I think maybe it was a little before that, but we definitely worked continuously through COVID. I met him for the first time a long time ago, probably in 2010, when I was trying to get the church to come play at the ad agency I was working at in Colorado,
Oh,
and
cool.
and I just kind of traded an email with him over the years now and then to keep up. I remember sending an email asking him how to get the intonation right on my Rick 12 string. I figured he's the guy to ask that to. And then I saw he was doing these songwriting and guitar guidance sessions, and thought, well, shit, of course I'll do that. Get some advice from a
A
guy
master.
I admire, a master of his craft, and a guy who's done about a zillion albums with a zillion projects. And I had no idea what it would turn into. I thought I was just going to get some guitar tips, and but here we are, and we've become good friends and collaborators. And it's funny now thinking back about how nervous I used to get around him because I was kind of starstruck. I mean, when I was 16, my buddy and I went to see the church in concert and stood over in front of Marty and just were like, "That guy's the coolest in the world."
Right.
So
I saw them back in 91 or
yeah,
92 when
yeah,
the tour for what was that album? Starfish?
yeah,
The one that had the big hit on it.
yeah.
So when you were with The Reach, did you write with someone else, or did you just do your songwriting on your own?
Now the Reach we wrote pretty much by jamming out instrumental stuff, and I would generally just kind of sing babble lyrics for a while, and then go back and finish the lyrics. That was our process.
Right.
So all three of us got songwriting credit on that stuff, and
Right.
it was a cool way to write. So
Right. Yeah, was it different working with Marty than it was working with them for you?
uh, yeah, I mean, Marty took on a different role. They were band members. We were all equals in the band. With Marty, he sort of took on a mentorship role with me, and I like to tell people that I think the whole story is a great testament to the value of mentorship, and it's something that's missing from society today. That finding that Yoda, who can kind of guide you through things, and you can bounce ideas off. So yeah, it was a very different process that way. It was really him sort of as a coach and mentor, and then him coming in kind of after the songs were written for the most part, and doing what I call putting Marty magic on it. Playing great lead parts and great little textural parts and effect parts, and really taking the songs to another level completely. So
Right. So you were completely open to his input, even if it may have swayed what your original creative vision was.
Well, I'm like most people. I think I'm not great with taking criticism, and so there are a few times when he'd say something, I'm like, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. And then I would go back and later and go, okay, hang on a second. This is Marty Wilson Piper. He's made a gajillion albums that I love. I should probably listen to him. And he was always right. So that helped me get past uh, that sort of wanting to figure everything out for myself and thinking I'm always right part. It's easy to listen to a guy like that with his track record. So
There you go. There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of influences, post-punk, alternative.
mhm,
And I feel like you stay true to the different thing. You can pull them out.
mhm.
How do you work through combining these elements into a cohesive whole where you can still look and say, I know where this came from or where this, what this is attached to.
That's hard to say. I mean, I can think of a couple specific things, and one is that I'd been listening to a lot of the post punk stuff like B-52s and XTC, bands that have a play fast,
Mhm.
and like the early REM stuff is super fast if you go back and look at the tempos on those songs. And so I wanted something that had that energy to it. And I think that's missing from a lot of music today. I mean, as much as I love, although I'm saying music today and I'm about to reference Soundgarden, but but as much as I love a song like Outshined,
Yeah.
sometimes you want tick 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 tick,
Right. Yeah.
and so that was a conscious effort. And uh, I'm always sort of walking this tightrope between uh, being influenced by REM and being too influenced by REM. My voice naturally sounds a lot like Michael Stipe, uh, and there's not much I can do about that, But I'm conscious of more trying to make sure I'm doing something that's an original combination of things.
Right.
Um, um, yeah,
I, w-
and,
I
and I
was a
think I think there's different, and I can hear different influences all over the record. I mean, uh,
And obviously you get some from Marty just because his guitar is the sound is iconic. You
yeah,
automatically associate it with these other things.
sure. And I was a huge fan of the Church and Starfish, and that
Yeah.
influenced my playing long before I met Marty. So
Right, right.
now,
It's
I love the interplay of two guitars, and that's really what the Church was known for. And bands like Television, that the two guitars work together seamlessly.
right.
Um, and so definitely I've always kind of written that way, even though I'm just one guy. I would write guitar parts that work together. So
Right now the reach was what, you bass and drums, guitar, bass and drums?
yeah, the old power trio. So
Right. So what how is it having the other guitar actually making the what's in your head come true with Marty?
uh it's it's cool in that when you're the only guitarist in a band, you really feel a need to fill the space with sound.
Mhm.
And whenever I would take a solo, it was always sort of a chordal solo.
Okay.
It felt weird to me to just sort of solo over just bass and drums. Um, and you do a lot of sort of arpeggio picking where you're letting notes ring out. Um, so it just sort of took that restriction off me of having to do that. I could think about parts in a different way. So
Right. I like that you brought up Television there. I hadn't placed that, but with the 2 guitars, I can totally see that.
yeah, yeah.
I love that.
It's funny because Richard Lloyd does the same thing Marty does. He does Skype sessions for guitar, and I think his are a lot more like music theory,
Right.
nuts and bolts. And Marty's is all about just creativity. But
Right. I've done 300 plus interviews and I've had one person end the interview early and get mad at me, and it was Richard Lloyd.
yeah, that's funny.
I asked him about a
Yeah.
solo album and he's like, "You just want to talk about when I did drugs," and he hung up on me and I was like, "Okay."
What are you gonna do?
I was like, "Sorry, man." I was suffering though from what you were saying at the time of being starstruck. I was like, "Wow, I'm really talking to Richard Lloyd." So I
Yeah,
probably wasn't on my best, I
yeah,
was
yeah,
being fanboy, I
yeah.
guess. When you were doing Blueburst, Was there a particular song or moment during the process when you were like, yes, this is what Blueburst is?
I think doing Vanish, I think that one just came out as such an amalgam of different influences. I mean, there's some synth in there that sounds like New Order. There's the acoustic break that somebody told me it reminded him of Zebra. I don't know if you remember that band. Um,
Yes,
but
yeah,
it just
Zebra.
it had, that song to me had something that I think that I love in music, which is it can make you exhilarated or very sad at the same time. Uh, and it really expressed an emotion that I think I've been trying to get out with my music for a long time. So
Right. Well, so
sort
do
of
you
an
think?
sort of
Do you
an ache, just
right?
to, yeah.
Do you think all the time away helped you in shaping these songs and telling these stories?
Uh, well, definitely 20 years of life experience did. The album really, it's really kind of about my midlife crisis I had at age 50. And I didn't set out to write an album called Significance that centers around that theme of what it means to have a significant life or
Right.
not. But it just kind of turned out that way. And one day I was like, that's the name of the album. It all fits together now. So, but yeah, it's, Marty said, we were talking about how to market the record, and he said, well, the problem is, kids buy records, and this is like music made by a 50-year-old about being a 50-year-old, targeted to other 50-year-olds.
The Gen X record.
Yeah, it definitely is. Um, but I mentioned to you earlier, I've had some success recently in getting the record out more by doing targeted advertising, which, as much as I can't stand the algorithm sometimes, it's really helpful in that case, in that I can run an ad that only targets people in my age bracket who have indicated an interest in post-punk or indie music. And that's gone really, really well, and gotten a lot of
Facebook.
ears on the record. Yeah, Facebook is the main thing.
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to be a real estate agent, and before they changed the rules, I could target like women. I only targeted women with advertising because most
Yeah.
women make the decision if you're going to buy or sell the house.
Yeah.
And then they changed the rules and said that violated
Well, I don't.
whatever.
I think it's back though. I mean, I don't. I don't make that switch, but it definitely is on there. You can choose men or women and an age bracket.
Okay, okay.
Um, and it can get so specific. You can be like, women between the age of 31 and 32 who like beagles and cooking.
Right,
I mean, it's like it's
right,
crazy how specific you can get. So
right, exactly. Now, is this one a label? Did you put the album out on a label, or is it independent?
it's independent. We marked it as being on Marty's label, which is just kind of getting started of In Deep. He has the In Deep Music Archive, which is his giant collection of records, and he wants to take a lot of the records he's been doing kind of with people like me and put them out on this label. And so ours was the first release from In Deep, but I don't think it's like really official a business yet. It's just kind of that's what we're
Right.
doing. So
Now, are there physical copies of it, or is this
yeah,
only online?
yeah, we've got vinyl and CDs, and you can buy them at blueburst.band.
There you go.
And like I said recently, it's I've been selling a lot of stuff, and I just ordered a new batch that we're going to put out as a deluxe edition that's on blue vinyl, and I'm going to sign the cover and put a lyric sheet in it, and
Right.
180 gram, 180 gram, really nice thick vinyl. So
Well, yeah, I was gonna say if you're doing the colored, make sure that it's the thicker stuff because some of those thin colored ones just you play them twice and they're unplayable.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
like
yeah,
destroy the needle just destroys the grooves. I
yeah,
probably should change my needle more often, but that's another story.
yeah.
They're expensive. Needles are
They
expensive.
are. It's ridiculous, right?
Do you find it strange that the preferred medium for audio files is something that's over 100 years old?
It is crazy, isn't it? It's like, and I got really into HD audio for a while and spent a ton of money downloading 192 kilohertz versions of all my favorite albums. And, I can hear a difference. Definitely. I remember being in my car listening to stuff on my iPhone that was high res and going, I can hear like little reverb tails and all kinds of detail that I didn't hear on MP3 or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's strange that vinyl sounds better than that high res audio to me. It just has a warmth to it, and I think that the human ear and likes things that aren't quite perfect. And no matter how great your turntable is, it's never going to spin exactly the right thing. It's always going to have a tiny imperceptible warble to it, and I love that sound of tape warble, and I tried to implement it into the album a lot. So there's just something about vinyl that's just comforting and warm, and
Right.
it,
A
you know,
and when you listen to vinyl, you listen to it on speakers, on a turntable, as opposed to an MP3, which you're listening to on a phone. I mean, it's just the
yeah.
quality is just garbage.
Well, I spend a lot of time listening to vinyl on these nice Grotto headphones that I got that sound terrific. But it's amazing. I mean, Marty talks about this a lot. It's like, I'm going to do my grumpy old man thing for a minute.
Go ahead.
These kids today have never actually heard music as it's meant to be heard, because it's just they get earbuds and they think that's what you do, and they're fine, but it's not the same as listening on a great pair of pro headphones or a big pair of speakers with, that fills up the room. Um, it's just it's a shame, and I hope that it pendulum swings back a little bit.
Right. Are you yeah, I'm sure you're up on Spotify.
Mhm.
How is that going for you?
I have such mixed feelings about Spotify.
Oh, I do too.
On the one hand, it's been going pretty well. The streams have been going up, and the algorithm, like I said, is good at kicking our music out to people who seem to like it. On the other hand, it's just infuriating how little they pay.
Mhm.
To make $1,000 of royalties on Spotify requires over 300,000 streams,
Wow.
and that's just insane when you compare it to how many plays on a CD would how many CDs would it take? It's if
Right.
I don't know how to do the math on that, but
10,000 what, 10,000?
yeah, and then
10,000 CDs would get you oh, no, to get
yeah,
$1,000, you need to sell 10 CDs, maybe even 5.
yeah, and the CEO came out a while back and was quoted as saying, I'm curious to see which music stands the test of time. Now that the cost of creating music is near zero, and everyone in the industry went, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
It is. That's news to me. I thought guitar strings cost $12.
Right. And it's
Uh,
it's disingenuous when the fact that you go to I go to Spotify to buy music. I wanna hear music, so I'm willing to pay to not get the ads, but what Spotify is selling me is a subscription. They don't care about music.
no, no, they just want you to
It
pay for it. And I mean, let's be honest, as a consumer, it's fantastic.
yeah.
You get every piece of music ever recorded at your fingertips for $18 or whatever it is.
Right.
Um, but I wish they were putting more of that back in the pockets of the artists, and they could. I mean, Tidal does it, Apple
Yeah.
Music does it, but I don't get many streams off either of those. I get lots of streams off Spotify because
I wanna
that's what
make
everyone's on.
I wanna make a nonprofit streaming service, like a
Yeah,
co-op.
yeah.
I
Hey,
wanna
I'll sign up. I'm ready.
I read somewhere recently that in one day last year, as many albums were released as in the whole year in 1989.
I believe that. Yeah,
I think
and
that might be part of it too, just the saturation. It's so much harder to break through, you know?
yeah, and there's people who are making music for $0 just to make it in quantity and try to game the algorithm and get a lot of streams like that. The algorithm likes it the more often you release things,
Right.
and I kind of got that in my head, and I was like, oh, it's been 6 weeks and I haven't released anything, and I wound up releasing this cover of an Eagles song that I did, and I regretted doing it because it wasn't up to quality. It was something I did to try to get it in an ad and get some money.
Right.
That somebody was looking for a cover of that specific song. And it's fine. A few people liked it, whatever. But I just, I, I don't want to get into the mindset where I'm that worried about Spotify algorithm. It's like I love big albums that all
Right.
hang together. So
Yeah, there's a band, Jim Cotta, that I'm a big fan of. They're kind of electronic, jamtronica they call it. They're a jam band, but play kind of electronic music. And over COVID, they recorded 10 songs and released one a month. And then on the 11th month, they released the album. So they
Yeah.
had something all year. They had
Yeah.
something
I
come
mean,
out.
that's kind of what we did with Significance, for that very reason. I just had just been reading. That's what you have to do
Mhm.
is drip it out bit by bit. Um, but you missed that experience that we had of, I remember when OK Computer came out, and I went out and bought it on the first day and just sat and listened to the whole thing.
And then listened again.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't have been the same at all if they dripped it out one song at a time. So
No, not at all. You used to maybe get a single first,
yeah, yeah.
to blow things up. What are you thinking about AI? Do you have any thoughts on AI in music?
Uh, God, it's awful. Honestly, I took a class in AI music. Just I was curious about it. I took one of the Berkeley online classes, and it's unbelievable what it can do. I mean, there's a site called Suno where you can go to it and type in, write me a reggaeton song with lyrics about a frog who, who drives a car,
Right.
and it'll do it. And it's,
It sounds
it
right. It
sounds
sounds
right. It sounds right. It doesn't sound great, but it's kind of horrible because, and that's the thing about all the AI is what it does is it takes all of this stuff that's been done before, and then when you ask it for something, it goes and looks at that and makes this sort of middle road of everything that's been done. And so, you don't get anything interesting or unique. And I had an argument with a friend recently who was saying, "Oh, AI is going to take over." And I'm like, "Well, it isn't music about one human being, communicating an emotion to another. I mean, doesn't it change it for you that a fake person is singing this? It's versus
and they
Robert
can't
Smith or
tour.
something."
The
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
person can't go on well, I guess they
yeah,
could have a hologram like they did with Tupac or
yeah,
whatever, but,
yeah, yeah,
eh,
um,
you still there's nothing that's ever gonna take away you sitting in a room with your guitar playing to other people.
right.
There's AI could never take that away from us, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, it's there's AI incorporated in a lot of the recording software now. That can automate a lot of you know what would otherwise be busy work,
Mhm.
and that's good, and it's good when AI can do that. Um, but I don't know. I'm curious to see how people are going to use it in the future.
Well, I'm pretty sure the first thing that's gonna go from you guys as a career opportunity or a job opportunity is incidental music in movies, music for commercials. That's all
Yeah,
going to be AI if it isn't already.
yeah, yeah. I think you're absolutely right about that.
And you're going to, that's, I knew some musicians, that was their bread and butter.
My day job is I work in advertising as a creative director and writer, and we used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars paying storyboard artists to make storyboards, and now those guys are all out of work, I assume, because you just type it into AI and you get a photo real thing. So
Right.
it's yeah, it's just such a crazy time to be watching it, and no one quite knows how it's all going to
I've
fit. But
seen the
I mean,
Terminator. I've
yeah,
seen the Terminator. I know
yeah.
how it turns out.
I think there's going to be a backlash of people, who are like, instead of putting made with AI on something, they're going to be like, made by real humans.
Right, right.
You
Like
know,
Boston did no synthesizers on this album
yeah,
for
yeah,
their first
exactly.
album.
Or everything on it is analog, right?
Right.
No synthesizers. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Well, let's
I have a real lo-fi kind of ethic. Although, I wind up faking lo-fi with with digital technology a lot. But Marty is adamant about using real amps and real tubes and vintage gear, and I sort of uh, was skeptical that does an amp from the '60s sound any better than an amp from now? But it actually does. It really does. And so I invested in. I've got a '65 Fender Pro Reverb over here behind me, and I you
it's
just
warmer, right?
yeah. I mean, you can fake it to a point, but I told Marty there's an XTC album called Wasp Star Volume 2, and I read that Andy Partridge used artificial amps for the whole album. And there's nothing that sounds wrong, but you listen to the whole album and it's not a very great sounding album. And I think
Right.
there's just something missing in those simulations. So I try to avoid it. And I do a lot of reamping where I record the guitar part uh, straight from the guitar into the board. And as I'm playing, I'm hearing a simulated amp. But then later I go back and play it out of the board into a real amp and record the real amp. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
I like that. I like that.
yeah, it's more and more common,
All right.
Uh,
Yeah, you said that I guess you do writing for your job.
yeah.
You write the lyrics for Blueburst.
Mhm.
Very introspective. How do you walk that line of exposing yourself to people like that, of putting it all out there?
It's funny, I've always just kind of done it, and I've always admired musicians who do it. And I saw, I was watching myself playing "Kick My Tires" from the album Acoustic, and it suddenly occurred to me, like, I'm up here singing about like deep-seated psychological demons to a room full of strangers. It was the first time it ever sort of occurred to me. But it's like, the lyricists that I like are always been very personal and introspective. I think Peter Gabriel is a huge influence on my lyrics, and he puts it all out there, and
Yeah.
the Cure as well.
Robert
So
Smith, my
yeah,
hero.
so it's yeah. I think it's something that if you don't do it when you're young, it's probably hard to start doing it when you're older, to just start spilling your guts. But I've been doing it since I was, playing in uh, bands as a 14-year-old. So
Right. I probably lived through high school listening to pornography because I was like, there's somebody more fucked up than me out there.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Do you find it
What a great
cathartic?
album.
Do you find it cathartic doing it?
What specifically? Writing the lyrics?
The writing and the putting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it helps me to crystallize something going on that I didn't know was there. I write lyrics sort of by singing stream of consciousness into a microphone for an hour and then go back and listen to it and see what's there. And so I think I'm getting stuff that's, when I sang it, I didn't know what it meant. And then later I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that meant.
You could put the narrative on it, right?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I mean, I guess most people, I feel like, break out a notepad or a computer, or they have a thing, on their phone. They'll say, "I was walking down the street," and
Yeah.
put
And
it. That's a fascinating way to do it.
I feel like I almost should try doing it the regular way where you just pick up an acoustic guitar and strum some chords and sing a melody. But that's always been on my to-do list, like I should write a song like that, but I just never have done it.
It
I
seems to
tend,
be working what you're doing now.
yeah, yeah. So I stick with it, I think.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Did Marty could contribute any lyrics to the album, or did he make suggestions to you on what you had?
Not really, he really didn't.
Cool.
Um, well, I mean, one interesting thing is the song Supernova. I had written the music for it and I was playing it for my wife, and I thought it was a hopeful sounding piece. And my wife's been through recovery, and she's 5 years sober now. And she was kind of, at the time I was writing that, she was really in the midst of reawakening as a person. And I said, do you want to write something for this?
Oh,
And she said, I just keep coming back to this phrase, no one gets out alive, that she had heard in a therapy meeting. And I was like, well, that just happens to exactly fit the meter of the song. So cool. That's going to be great. And, I always joke that song was my effort to write something a little happier than my other stuff. And I ended up writing a song about death and,
well, that can
uh,
be,
but it's about death only in that, it's a carpe diem kind of message of,
all right.
hey, we only have so much time here. I want to make the most of it. And,
The people who were sad about death, though, are the ones left behind. The guy who dies,
yeah,
he's
yeah, it's true. Yeah,
oh. So let's look forward a little bit.
sure.
Are you guys working on new songs? What's the future going to be?
Yeah, I'm just starting to write new stuff, and I suddenly have a deadline on me because Marty's coming to the States in May, and so I want to not don't want to miss that opportunity to get him out here to Atlanta and into the studio. So I got to have some songs written. Um, it's I'm not the most prolific guy in the world, so it's good for me to have a deadline to force me to do it. And one of the period I was writing the album, I was a freelancer and I was not getting any work in my day job, so I had a lot of time to write music. So that's the tricky bit now. Is now that I'm working more steady to pay the bills and all that, it's
Right.
fitting it in. So
Are you guys going to get to do any live shows, or is he going to be over here just on a visiting thing?
he's over here doing some recording on a couple other projects, and then I'm gonna tack on some days with him. Who knows? I mean, we haven't talked about it other than just generally. God, it would be great to tour with this and get a live band together. And but it's tough. I mean, Michael Jerome, the drummer, has been touring with Slash and Richard Thompson and Better Than Ezra, and he's doing
Slash and
terrific.
Richard Thompson.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it was great. I went to see him in play here with Slash's blues band, and it's the kind of music where he gets the chance to really just let it rip. It's like hanging back and being tasteful be damned in that music.
Right.
It's like, just let's go. So it was fun watching him do that.
Dirty. Who played bass on the album?
Most of it is Ryan Kelly, who it was in a band in Athens, Georgia called Day Room for a bunch of years. And the guys in Day Room I played with in high school.
Okay.
And so I knew Day Room and met Ryan through them. And he's just a monster player. I mean, it's just great and super tasteful. And, I actually a couple of times said, hey, you don't have to be so tasteful here. You can give me a little bit more. He's like, okay, I didn't want to get in the way of the song. And I'm like, no, it's cool. So, but yeah, he's an amazing player.
It's nice to be able to give the players who come in to play the space to make it their own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As
And
opposed to
yeah, and I recorded an interview with him that I did that's on our YouTube channel. You can watch, and we talked about all kinds of stuff. So,
all right, cool. We'll put some links to that. Well, so are you on Bandcamp?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
Blueburst
I'm
Music.
I'm a big fan, even though they got bought out by private equity last year.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it is on the other side, but I feel like you should still be able to make a little something.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen any changes from my perspective on it. Uh, I know with an upcoming secret thing Marty's doing, I think they're going to only put it on Bandcamp for at least a while, and a lot of people are doing that now.
Right.
So that it sucks, but you're forcing people to pay for it, and you have to do that. I mean, this stuff isn't free, and
Right.
you're not getting the money from streaming. So Bandcamp's a great platform in that way, and that it's about purchasing the music. So.
Right. And even if I know a lot of, these jam bands they'll put their live shows up there, and you
Yeah,
can just listen to it if you want, or it'll say, just throw us whatever you want. The box
yeah.
comes up and it's like, if you want to throw them a buck, throw them a buck or
Yeah,
which,
that's always nice when because it gives you that option when you're checking out if you can contribute extra. And I always feel great when somebody throws in extra $2 or whatever.
you know,
And we sell physical product through Bandcamp also. So,
right.
yeah.
Are there any other artists that you'd like to work with in the future?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Well, I recently met a guy named Patrick Ferguson, who was a drummer for a band called 5/8, who were kind of a legendary band in this part of the country, and they're still playing now and then. But he really loved their album and was like, I want to play with you, and so that may happen. Musicians I love to play with. There's so many. Gosh, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for that.
Right.
It's never really occurred to me that like any. I mean, the thing with Marty is just so surreal that like one of my favorite musicians.
Like, what else do I
playing
need
on
to
my
do?
album.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you
You know,
listen to any current music? Any new music?
it's funny. I have a total guilt complex that I'm not listening to enough new music because I just tend to go back to my favorite albums. But I've heard a lot of stuff lately that I liked. I liked Fontaine's DC a lot. There's a band I really like called English Teacher,
Okay.
that really has a great, really dynamic album called, I think it's called This Could Be Texas.
Okay.
Um, there's a new Soccer Mommy album out that
I love her.
that Ben worked on, the guy who mixed our record.
Oh, okay, cool. I got
And
to see her a few years ago at a bar in Baltimore, the
oh,
Auto
right,
Bar.
cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Hour set. I love that. She had 3 other bands. They played
Mhm.
each 45 minutes. She came out, played her hour set or 10-minute encore. I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah,
It's so good.
yeah,
I
uh,
think the Down the Drain, Circle the Drain was the hit or was her big song at that moment. So,
yeah, yeah. And I like the new thing Stephen Malkmus is doing a lot. The Hard Quartet. I'm
yes.
a massive Pavement fan.
Yes.
I was telling somebody yesterday, when I was in college, I was just sick of listening to all of my stuff that I had, all this echoey, 80s lush guitar music. And I'm like, I'm just going to go to the record store and buy something that I've heard of, but I never heard. And I picked up Pavement and Sonic Youth, and I just fell in love with both of them. And
Which Sonic Youth?
it was Washing Machine.
Washing Machine,
And it's
then
funny
one of
because
the newer
no,
ones.
yeah, no one really likes that album, but it's like I love it because I think when you discover a band, you tend to like the album you discovered them on, you know.
Exactly. I
So
sister LP was the first one I got from him, and that's still the one I go back to.
yeah,
So,
yeah. What I mean, it's an incredible legacy they've
right.
left
Have you
behind.
heard the new Cure album?
Many times, yes,
It's fantastic.
it is.
How does he still do that?
I don't know. My wife and I went to see them play in Barcelona, I guess a year and a half ago when they were touring, and it was the most enthusiastic crowd I've ever seen at any show, and maybe that's because we were in Spain and people are cooler over there. Uh, but his voice has not changed a bit. I mean, people make fun of how he's this old man and he's still wearing the makeup and all that stuff, but he sounds amazing
He's
still.
authentic.
And he plays 3.5 hour shows at his age, and he doesn't have to do that. He could go play an hour and a half and no one would care.
Cash the
But
check, right?
he wants to do it because he loves doing it, and that kind of authenticity is what's
Sorely
draws
lacking in
people in.
today's world.
Yeah, there's that clip of him where he's walking into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, and he's kind of going on the red carpet, and there's this bubbly little interviewer, and she goes, "Oh my God, Robert Smith, The Cure, are you as excited as I am to be here?" And he goes, Actually, no, from the sounds of it." I can't do his accent.
Right.
And it's just like, that's him in a nutshell. It's like, he's not going to bullshit. He's just authenticity at its core. And a guy told me the other day, I told him, I said, I have a deep seated fear of someone thinking I'm full of shit. And he said, that's because you're Gen X, and Gen X is authenticity at all costs.
Yep.
And I thought back about all the people who have influenced me through Gen X, and that's absolutely true. Indie music. Yeah.
It is. I got
Yeah.
to see the live release of the album. They
Mhm.
did a stream and he did the whole concert and they
Yeah.
did a mini 17-second set.
Yeah. It was great. I saw that
And
too.
apparently he's going to tour through 2029.
Yeah.
They're going to tour every year and he's going to quit after that on whatever the 50th anniversary is, I guess, of when the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
album came out. And every year they're going to do mini sets from the album that came out 20 years or
Yeah.
25 years before. So I'm like, Faith, you're going to do a little mini pornography set one year?
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to see that. I saw they did a small batch of shows, only like 10 shows or so, where they did all of Three Imaginary Boys, all of 17 Seconds, and all of Faith. And I was lucky enough to see that at Royal Albert Hall when I lived in London for about 6 months. And
Wow.
that was amazing. I keep waiting for them to put it out on DVD or something because
Right.
it was terrific.
So crazy that they went from Three Imaginary Boys to 17 Seconds, though. It's almost
Yeah,
like two different bands,
totally, totally, totally.
I love those two albums. I got
Yeah,
they had two albums in one sleeve. It was Double Your Money or they
yeah, yeah,
called it something. And so the first two Cure albums I bought. So there you go.
yeah.
That's the ones you go back to. All right.
Totally.
Is there anything that you want to throw out before we wrap up?
Gosh, that's a great question. Well, I'm just, I'm really
Buy my
just
music.
yeah, buy my music. That's the main thing. Go buy lots of copies of it. I just feel really well, I'll put it this way. I was really down over the summer about the whole project because no one was listening. And I was like, what's the point of anything? Just kind of in that phase. I made this record. I think it's great, but no one's hearing it. And then, I started doing a little more social media, a little more advertising, and the response to it's just been overwhelming. And so many people telling me the same stuff you're saying, it reminds them of a better time, and people who are inspired by the story of, me kind of climbing out of a hole and of self-doubt and doing it. So that's really gratifying to hear and feel like I've inspired some people. And that's what every musician wants, is just for someone to get something out of the songs. And I love it when someone will call out a certain lyric to me that meant something to them. A guy yesterday quoted me when I said, I don't place my hopes in any phony afterlife. So
There you go.
yeah,
That's success. That is
yeah,
success.
it is, and it's making the record has made me a more confident, calm human being, because it's like, if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, I did this. I made this record,
Mhm.
and so I just encourage anyone to just, if you're thinking about doing something, go do it.
Yep.
Make it happen.
Don't have time. Yeah, but before COVID, I had never done anything like this. Since COVID, I've done 300 plus interviews.
Wow, that's great.
I was
I
like,
think
I found during COVID that if I emailed a musician, they were like, sure, because they had nothing else to do.
yeah.
And
Well,
then
I
I
mean,
built up a nice list, right? And then I could say, well, I've talked to this person, this person, this person. You want?
yeah. Well, it's funny sometimes when you find a hidden talent like that. You probably never thought of yourself as a good interviewer,
Mm-mm.
but you are. And I think the Mark Maron story is incredible. He's like, my comedy thing's in the toilet. I got to do something. I'll do a podcast, and now I got to.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that is the upside to all this insane technology, is the doors it's opened in certain ways for people. So
Right. Well, I always remember when I was little hearing the story of Colonel Sanders being 60 and starting Kentucky Fried Chicken, and
yeah,
like I got plenty of time.
yeah. There's a lot of stories like that. I can't think of any other ones off
Oh,
the top of my head.
what's his name from McDonald's?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
he was in his 50s or something. He was selling milkshake machines.
Yep. Yeah.
God
Yep.
love it. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on and
you.
talking to me. I would love to catch up in the future as you put other stuff out. The door is always open. Let's
All
put it
right.
that
Yeah,
way.
I will keep you posted. I really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you having me on. So
And hold on while I run the outro, so I
okay.
can thank you off camera. Everybody who's watching, follow us social medias at All That Jam Pod, and like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you next time.